Hi, welcome to Bookshelf Games. I'm Lawrence. This week we're continuing the series on Magic Realm. Magic Realm was published by Avalon Hill in 1978 and it was designed by Richard Hamblin. This week we're taking a look at the setup. The setup for this game can be a little long, but it's really not much different than any other large game. And it's pretty easy, as we'll see. So we'll go ahead and we'll get into it now. The players start each game constructing a completely new Magic Realm. There are two main parts to this process: preparing the setup card and constructing the map. Step 1, the setup card. Setting up the card involves a lot of pieces, but it is simplified by the fact that most of the information required is printed on the card itself. Setup of the treasure cards only requires one person and can be done in advance before other players arrive. Step 1 is the belongings. We're going to begin by separating the treasure cards into 3 separate stacks. The 3 stacks are treasures within treasures. Those are the cards with P1 through P6 printed on them in red. Large treasures. Those are the treasures with the gold dots on them. And small treasures. These are the cards that do not have gold dots on them. They can still have the red dot though, just not the gold one. Once we have all the treasure cards separated like this, we're going to turn them all over. And then you want to shuffle the different stacks to get everything randomized. Now once we have them all shuffled, we're going to take 5 cards from the large treasure stack. That's going to be the medium height one. Then we're going to come up to our setup card, and we're going to place them in the treasure within treasure boxes as they're listed. If we look up here, the chest calls for 2 large treasures. The remains of a thief calls for 1 large treasure. The toadstool circle calls for 1 large treasure. And the crypt of the night calls for 1 large treasure. After we put those large treasures in the treasure within treasures boxes, we're going to come back down to our treasure cards and we're going to mix together the large treasures and the treasures within treasure cards. This combined stack now makes up our new large treasure deck. We're going to use this new deck to go through the rest of the setup card and find anywhere that requires large treasures. And then we're going to take cards from this new deck and put them in that location. We'll start with the treasure locations and work our way down. The hoard calls for 5 large treasures. The lair calls for 3 large treasures. The altar calls for 4 large treasures. The shrine calls for 2 large treasures. The pool is looking for 3 large treasures. The vault is looking for 5 large treasures. The cairns is looking for 1 large treasure. And the statue is looking for 1 large statue. And that actually uses up all of our large treasure cards. Now we're going to come back and grab our stack of small treasure cards. And we're going to come back up to our setup card and see where they need to be placed and place them down there. The treasure within treasures area does not require any small treasures. Now we'll take a look through, trying to keep it organized, going through our treasure locations first. The hoard requires 4 small treasures. Now that we have our 4 small treasures, you're going to make sure and put those below the large treasures. They have to go on the bottom. And we'll see why during the daylight video, but it makes them easier to get to than the large treasures. The lair takes 4 small treasures. Altar does not have any small treasures. The Shrine gets 2 small treasures. Again, we're putting them below the large treasures, so they're easier to get to. The Pool gets 6 small treasures. And again, they're put below the 3 large treasures in the Pool. The Vault has no small treasures, it's all large treasures. The Cranes gets 6 small treasures. And again, they're put below the large treasure. And the Statue gets 2 small treasures. After done with the treasure locations, we come over to the dwellings, and we're going to fill in these boxes with the required treasure cards also. These can represent a couple of different dwellings. So we'll just go ahead and start from the top and go down. This one's pretty simple. They all simply just require 2 small treasures. After we're done with those dwellings, we'll come over farther to the right. This top section we're not using right now. That's going to be used in a minute. So coming back down, we'll start with the visitors. The visitors, the only box that requires treasures is the Scholar, and he requires 3 small treasures. After that, we come over to the garrison boxes, and we're going to fill them in as required. Again, each of those is going to require 2 small treasures. After we're done with the treasure cards, we're going to take all of our weapon, armor, horses, and special weapon counters, and they're going to be put on the setup card. Okay, so first we're going to look at the treasure within treasures location, and we're going to see what weapons, armor, and horse counters they require. Starting with the chest, it does not require any counters, just the 2 treasures that are already there. For the remains of the thief, it's looking for the living sword, plus the large treasure that's already there. So we want to come down here and find the living sword. Then we're going to look at the list of treasures required for the remains of the thief, and we want to stack them in the order listed. So it says living sword first, then the large treasure, and then it has some other information that does not have to do with physical components. Next, we'll take a look at the moldy skeleton, and this lists the gold helmet, the silver breastplate, and the jade shield. So we want to come down and find those 3 things. We've got the gold helmet, the silver breastplate, and the jade shield. And again, we're going to look at what the location calls for and stack them in that order on top of it. Next, we have the toadstool circle. This is going to call for the devil's sword, in addition to the 1 treasure card that's already there. So coming back down to our counters, we see again we have the devil's sword. And we're just going to place that on top of the treasure. Coming over to the Crypt of the Night, this one has quite a bit on it. It's got the special war horse, the T3, T5, the T armor, the Bane sword, and then the 1 large treasure card that's already there. So again, coming back down to our treasures, we're going to want to find that special horse. It's T5 on one side and T3 on the other. The T armor, and the Bane sword. And again, we're going to stack those in order and place them on top of the treasure card. Now, on the Enchanted Meadow, it calls for 1 pony, that special pony that's L2 on one side, L4 on the other, and then also the true sword. So again, we're going to come down to our counters, find the pony that has L2 on one side, L4 on the other, and also the true steel sword. Then we're going to place them down in order listed. Okay, so now we've placed down all of the treasure cards and the special weapon, armor, and horse counters, we're now ready to place down the normal counters. Now what I did is I went ahead and organized them into like types, because there's not really any variation to say the helmets. They're all the same. The only spot where there really is variation is going to be with the horses, but that's okay, as we'll see. Now what we're going to do is start with the dwellings. Looking at the top box, it calls for the treasure cards we already have, 1 helmet, 1 breastplate, and 1 shield. So we're going to take those 3 counters and place them on top of the treasure cards. Coming down to the second box, it calls for the treasure cards we have, 2 light bows, and 1 medium bow. So looking at our weapon counters, we're going to find the 2 light bows and the medium bow. And we're going to place that on top of the treasure cards back inside the box. Okay, looking at the third box, that is calling for 2 small treasures we have, 1 helmet, 1 breastplate, 1 shield. So again, come down to our counters, find 1 helmet, 1 breastplate, and 1 shield. And we're going to throw that on top of the box. After that, we'll take a look at box numbered 4. And we'll see that calls for the 2 treasure cards it has and 4 spears. So we'll come down to our counters and find the 4 spears. And place that on top of the box. Next we'll find the box card, or the number 6 box, and they call for the 2 treasure cards and 6 ponies. So looking at the counters, we're going to find the ponies. That's this symbol here. Calls for 6 of them. There are only 6, so you're giving them all the ponies. And again, I'm just going to slap those on top of the treasure cards there for the Boschkar's box. Okay, then we're going to come over to our garrison boxes, because they also require these normal weapon, armor, and horse tokens. First, we'll take a look at the chapel. That requires the 2 small treasure cards we have, 3 war horses, 2 suits of armor, 5 heavy weapons. Pretty dangerous chapel. So, come down to our counters, grab the 3 war horses. That's the symbol for the war horse. The 2 suits of armor, and the 5 heavy weapons in the game. And we're going to place those on top of the chapel's treasure cards. Next, we'll take a look at the inn. That requires 2 small treasure cards we have and 6 horses. So we already have those 2 treasure cards, so we just grab our 6 remaining horses and we place them on the treasure cards at the inn. Next, taking a look at the house, that calls for 3 helmets, 2 shields, and 7 light weapons. So coming back down to our counters, we're going to take 3 helmets, the 2 shields, and 7 light weapons. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And again, we're going to place those on the treasure cards at the house. Now, looking at the guard, it requires, it already has its 2 small treasures, 1 helmet, 1 breastplate, and 5 medium weapons. So if we did this correctly, it should be everything. We have 1 helmet, 1 breastplate, and 5 medium weapons, which again we place on the treasure cards in the guardhouse. And then that's what the set of cards is going to look like after all of the belongings have been placed. Next, we're going to take a look at the spells. So, step 2 of step 1 of the setup card is the spells. Spell cards do not need to be put on the setup card unless the magic rules are going to be used. Their setup is quite simple. First thing we're going to do is divide them up into stacks by type. There are going to be 8 types that make up the 8 stacks you're going to separate them into. What determines the type is going to be the Roman numerals at the bottom inside the parentheses. You're then going to take each stack, shuffle it up, and place it back down, face down. Once we have all of the spell stacks shuffled up, we're going to come back up to our setup card and place the spells in all of our visitors, artifacts, spell books, and treasure sites. We'll start with the treasure locations. Not all the treasure locations require spells, as we'll see. The Hoard does not require any spells. The Lair does not require any spells. The Altar requires one Type 2 spell and one Type 3 spell. So we're going to take one Type 2 spell. I have these in order so I remember what's what. And one Type 3 spell. You're then going to place them by putting the first spell listed on the bottom and each other one on top of that. So since it says one Type 2 spell, that goes on the bottom, and then one Type 3 on top of it. The Shrine will require one Type 1, one Type 5. So we'll take one Type 1 and one Type 5. And we'll place them on top of the site, again with the first one listed on the bottom. Next, we come down to the Pool. The Pool does not require any spells. The Vault also does not contain any spells. The Cairns. The Cairns require no spells. Finally, the Statue. The Statue requires two Type 7 spells and one Type 8 spell. So, come back down to our spells, grab two Type 7 spells and one Type 8. And again, we'll place that on the statue in order listed, with the first listed on the bottom. Next, we'll come up to the spellbook boxes that are in the top right-hand corner. We'll start with the Scroll of Nature. The Scroll of Nature gets two Type 2 spells and two Type 3 spells. So, we'll grab our two Type 2 spells, and then the two Type 3 spells, and we'll throw those on top of the two Type 2s. And we'll throw them in the Scroll of Nature. Next, we have the Scroll of Alchemy, which requires four Type 6 spells. So, this is an easier one. Just take four Type 6 spells and put them in the Scroll of Alchemy. Next, looking at the Good Book, we have two Type 1 spells and two Type 7 spells. So, we'll grab our two Type 1 spells and our two Type 7 spells. Again, we're going to put the Type 7s on top of the Type 2s, since the Type 2 is listed first. And we'll put those in the Good Book. Next, we have the Book of Lore, which calls for four Type 4 spells. So, we'll grab our four Type 4 spells, and we'll put those in the Book of Lore. And finally, we have the Black Book. That requires two Type 5 spells and two Type 8 spells. So, we'll take two of the Type 5 and put them underneath two of the Type 8, and we'll place those in the Black Book. Now we'll take a look at the artifacts. First we have the Sacred Statue, which calls for one Type 1 spell. So grab the one, and this is the last Type 1 spell, and we'll place it in the Sacred Statue. Next we have the Eye of the Idol, which is calling for one Type 2. And as you might already be able to see, there's going to be a pattern forming. We have the Sacred Statue as a Type 1, Eye of the Idol 2, Glimmering Ring calls for a 3, the Enchanter Skull 4, Blasted Jewel 5, Hidden Ring 6, Glowing Gem 7, and Beast Pipes 8. So I'll just grab each of the appropriate ones and throw them up there real quick. And as a quick note, the Glowing Gem used up our last spell 7. Next we'll take a look at the visitors. First, the Scholar. The Scholar has no spells required in his box. After him, the Shaman. The Shaman requires one Type 2, one Type 3 spell. So again, we'll take a one Type 2 and put it underneath our one Type 3 spell. And we'll place those in the Shaman's box. After that, we have the Warlock, which calls for one Type 4, one Type 6 spell. So we'll take our one Type 4 and put it beneath our one Type 6. And we'll put that on top of the Warlock. And finally, we have the crone. One type 5, one type 8. So I will take our one type 5 and put it beneath our one type 8. And we'll place those inside the crone's box. Now as you can see, we still have 6 spell cards left over, because there's no more locations on the setup card for spells. These spells are simply taken out of play face down, returned to the box and not shown to anyone. And much like our treasure cards, the spell cards need to stay face down until found during gameplay. And that brings us to part 3 of step 1 of the setup card, the denizens. We're going to start by putting each of the monster counters in the box where it's pictured, light side up or red side down for the biggest counters. Let's start with the Lost Castle. Now, monsters in the original game came in different sizes to show their vulnerability. With the redesigned chits, it simply says on there. But this is easy enough to do anyway, because the size of the box is going to show you the size of the vulnerability. And you can kind of compare. Like you can tell right here, that's going to be larger than this. So these are going to be the heavy flying dragons. And now the 2 underneath says how many of them go in the box. So we're going to come down to our creature box and try and find 2 of the flying dragons. Once we found them, we'll come back up to our box and place them light side up. Remember, with the redesigned chits, the light side is going to be white on the bottom and the dark side will have a colored strip on the bottom. So we'll place them light side up. Right below those flying dragons, we have the Dank W, and that has our medium vipers in it. Again, you can tell this because of the size of the box. It's the smallest of the 3 snake boxes. So it's going to be the medium vipers. And there's a 2 down there, so there's 2 of them. So again, we'll come down to our monster box, grab the 2 medium vipers, and place them face down. And place them light side up. Below the vipers, we're going to have first the wolves. And there's a lot of them. There's actually 6 of those. So we'll come down to our box, grab our 6 wolves. Next to them we have our 2 medium ogres. So we'll grab the medium ogres and place them light side up also. At this point, I think you can pretty well see where we're going with the rest of these boxes. We don't need to worry about those too much. The tremendous characters, they're kind of a little bit different, but we'll see some of them in the treasure locations. So for now, I'll just go ahead and finish up the Lost Castle and the Lost City. Okay, so now we have all the Lost Castle and Lost City spaces filled in. We'll come over to the treasure locations. And almost all of these treasure locations are going to have a very large creature in them. We'll start with the Horde. The Horde has the tremendous flying dragon. And remember, for some of the tremendous characters, they have both the tremendous characters counter and they have an extra one for an extra attack they can make. You can go ahead and put both of these in the same location, both light side up. And we just throw it right on top of the treasure cards. Next, we have the Lair, which gets the tremendous dragon, and he also has an extra attack counter. So we'll stack those up and put them on top of the Lair. Then we have the altar, so I can get in there. That gets the demon. The demon does not have an extra counter, so we'll just put him by himself on top of the altar. Next to that, we have the shrine, which gets the winged demon. So, and the flying demon also does not have an extra attack counter, so we'll just put the flying demon on top. Beneath him, we have the pool, which is the tremendous octopus. The tremendous octopus does not have an extra counter, so we'll put him by himself on top of there. Below that, we have the vault, which is our tremendous troll. He can be a tough one. He does not have an extra counter, so we'll just put him by himself up there. After that, we have the Cairns, which is our tremendous spider. So we'll put our tremendous spider light side up there. And finally we have the statue. And the statue is going to be the only treasure location without a tremendous monster. That gets the imp. And the imp does not have an extra attack counter. And now you'll see after that the only thing we have left are the two ghosts. And we'll see what we do with them during map creation. Okay, and that's going to bring us to our native groups. And our native groups are either going to start in the dwellings, where they're pictured, or in the garrison, where they're listed by name. We'll start with the dwellings. If we look at the top dwelling, we're going to see it has a picture that denotes the company. And it's important to point out that these pictures don't look the same on all of the counters for that group. There's just going to be one unique one that will identify it. And this one is for the company. And we can see that they have 7 different counters that are going to go in this box. So we'll come down to where we have our natives and we'll grab the company. And now these need to go in a special order, as we'll see. For natives, what we need to do is find the native that says the group's name and then HQ. This is the leader. We want to take him first. Then we're going to find the one that says Company 1, and we're going to put him on top of the leader. Then find Company 2, Company 3, Company 4, 5, and 6. So that's 6 plus the leader equals 7, just like it says. And we'll place those in the dwelling where they're pictured. Below that we have the wood folk. So we'll come back down, find our wood folk, put them all light side up. Then we'll put the leader on the bottom, followed by number 1, and then number 2. And we will place them where they're pictured. Below the wood folk we have the patrol, and the box indicates that there are 3 of them. Now the patrol are going to be a little bit different because some of them have horses. What we're going to do is, again, we're going to try and find the patrol HQ. Then we're going to find the horse labeled patrol HQ. Put both in the light side. We'll put the actual character patrol HQ on top of his horse and put him off to the side. Then we're going to try and find patrol 1, put him on top of his horse light side up, put them on top of the leader. Then we'll find patrol 2, put him on his horse, and put him on top of the leader. And we'll grab all these and place them in the box where they are pictured. Below the patrol, we have the lancers. And the lancers also have horses, so we're going to do similar to what we did with the patrol. We're going to find the HQ, there he is, and find his horse and put him on top of the horse. Then we'll find the number 1, put him on his horse, put him on top of the HQ. Then number 2, put him on his horse, throw him on top of number 1. Then number 3 goes on his horse and on top of number 2. And again, grab the whole stack and throw them in the box where they're pictured. Finally, we have the Boschkar. And they've all got horses also, so we're going to need to find that HQ, there he is, and his horse. And we'll start our stack. Find the number 1 and his horse. Number 2, his horse. 3, his horse. 4 and 5. And again, we shall put them on the box with their icon. And that brings us to the garrisons, or luckily there's a little bit more room. First we'll take a look at the chapel, and that has the order. Same thing, we're going to look for the leader and his horse, put the leader on the horse. Then we'll look for his number 1 and his horse. Put them on top of the leader. Then number 2, and then number 3. All light side up. And then we'll put them in the chapel. Then we have the house, which has the soldiers. Soldiers are pretty quick, they don't have any horses, so we can just find leader, number 1, number 2, number 3. Throw them in the house. Now we have the inn with the rogues. Again, no horses, but there's quite a few of these guys. Let's see, find HQ, then number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7. And we'll throw them in the inn. Finally, we have the guardhouse, which takes the guard. They're pretty nice and simple. There's just 3 of them, so I'll grab the leader, number 1, number 2, and we'll throw them in the guardhouse. And that completes the setup card for all of the treasures. The last thing we need to do for the setup card is find the day turn chit and the monster roll chit. We'll put the day turn chit up here on 1, and we'll just kind of put the monster roll chit somewhere neutral right now. That's just so we have it for later. It's not really affecting the game yet. Okay, and that brings us to step 2 of preparing for play, constructing the map. The first thing we're going to do is take all 12 of the map tiles and shuffle them up. Then we're going to deal them out evenly to each player. Players will now begin taking turns in a clockwise order. The player with the borderland tile must start by placing it in the center of the play area. Then, when his turn arrives, each player adds 1 of his map tiles to the map until all 12 are placed. This is going to be done using the following rules. Tiles must be placed green side up. The second tile must be placed next to the first tile. Further tiles must be placed adjacent to at least 2 other tiles. Adjacent in this case means that one of the tile's sides is lined up flush with the side of another tile. Road edges must join road edges wherever the tile meets. If a road leaves a tile edge, it must continue on to an adjacent tile. Road edges must join road edges wherever they meet. If a road leaves a tile edge, it must continue on an adjacent tile. There must be a route leading from at least one of the clearings in a tile to the Borderlands tile. This route can be traced along any roads, including hidden ones. The ledges and the high pass, all 6 clearings need to be able to trace back to the borderland. These are the only 2 tiles with 6 clearings that are not all connected within the tile. If a player has 1 or more tiles and no legal place to play them, the last player who placed a tile must pick that tile back up and make a different play. Step 3. Selecting a character and his starting conditions. If a player has no map tiles left when it's his turn to play a map tile, he then gets to pick a character that remains in the character stack. He may take any character that is in the stack of unused character cards. He also takes the character's counter, his attention shit, the one that was blank on the one side, his 12 action shits, and places them in the active area. He's then going to look at the back of the card and look at the 4th level of development for the character and get any weapons or armor listed there. You'll take those from the appropriate spots on the setup card. If there is more than one copy of an item on the card, the player may choose which native group to take it from. All armor counters begin undamaged side up, and all weapons begin alerted side down. The player then gets a personal history sheet and records the player he's using. Also, his special advantages. And any of his trade relations as they're shown on his card. Also writes down his starting 10 gold. If the character starts with spells and magic chits, he now gets to choose his starting spells and choose which magic chits he would like to enchant at the beginning. We'll go over this more during the magic section. The player chooses a dwelling where he will start the game from the possible starting dwellings given in the list of characters. So for this part, we need to check the back of the rulebook, and we see that the Berserker must start the game in the inn. So under the notes, we can just write down the starting position. Finally, the player secretly records the requirements he needs to win the game in the victory requirements box. He must distribute 5 points among the 5 categories listed, so each category would end up with a value between 0 and 5. In this case, we're just going to write down a common one of 3 in fame, 2 in notoriety, and then we could put zeros in the rest. Then you multiply the points assigned for each category by the factors shown and record the results as the needed. So we have 0 times 1 is 0, 0 times 2 is 0, 3 times 10 is 30, and 2 times 20 is 40. 0 times 30 is 0. The needed column shows how many great treasures, fame points, notoriety points, gold, and new spells the character needs to win the game. If it is a player's turn and he has already selected a character, he then skips his turn. When the last player chooses a character, then you're going to proceed on to the next step. Step 4, the map chips. The map chips are faced blank side up in a forest away from the clearings. First, we're going to take the 20 yellow warning chits and divide them into 4 groups according to the letters on each chit. Now we will take each group of 5 chits. We're going to flip them blank side up, mix them together, and then we're going to put them out on the board. Quick note, the C stands for cave tiles, the W stands for wood tiles, the V stands for valley tiles, and the M stands for mountain tiles. So we're going to turn them over, keep them separate, shuffle them up. Then we're going to take those ones we just shuffled up. In this case it's the M, the mountains. So we're going to take those M chips we have face down, and we're going to place them down in a neutral spot on each of the mountain tiles, not on top of a clearing. Remember, the deep woods is a mountain, and the cliffs. And we're going to do the same thing for the rest of the yellow chips, doing 1 stack at a time. I'll go ahead and finish those up real quick. And then once you're done, each tile should have 1 face down yellow map chit on it. Now, to place the rest of our chits, we're going to need to follow a series of steps. First, we're going to put our 8 gold sight chits and our 10 red sound chits together and flip them over so they're blank side up. Once we've done that, we want to mix them up thoroughly to get them good and shuffled. Now we're going to take 5 of these, leaving them blank side up without looking at them, off to the side. And we're going to take them and place them blank side up on the Lost City section of the setup card. Then we're going to come back down to our chits, take 5 more, and place them face down inside the Lost Castle. Now we're going to divide our remaining 8 chits into 2 groups of 4. We're then going to come down to our 8 remaining chits and break them into 2 groups of 4. We'll then add the Lost Cities chit to one of these groups and mix them back up so they're random again. We'll then take those chits we just mixed up, pick them up, and place one face down in each of the cave's tiles. Then come back down to our remaining 4 chits, add in the Lost Castle tile, mix those up thoroughly, and place one of each of them into each mountain tile. When we're done, we should see that each woods and valley tile should have 1 chit in it, and each mountain and caves tile should have 2 chits in them. Step 5, revealing the dwellings. This step can only be done after all players have completed step 3. First thing we're going to do is come up to our map and reveal all of the map chits in the valley tiles. Then we're going to replace them with the following dwellings and monsters. The Stink V chit is replaced with the Inn, and you're going to place these dwellings on the number 5 clearing, assuming that this number 5 clearing can be traced along any path, including hidden ones, back to the borderland. If for some reason you cannot trace clearing 5 back to the borderlands, you'll then use clearing 4. Smoke V is replaced with the house. Ruins V is replaced with the guardhouse. Dank V is replaced with the chapel. And Bones V is replaced with the 2 ghosts. When we place all the dwellings on the map, we're then going to take the natives from the corresponding garrison box on the setup card. In this first example, taking the order from the chapel and place them on that dwelling. Next, we'll grab the rogues. They go in the inn, so we place them on the inn. Then we'll grab the soldiers. They go to the house, so we'll place them on the house. Then last we have the guard, and they go to the guardhouse. So we'll place them on the guardhouse. Finally, the players reveal the starting dwelling they recorded. Each character's counter is then taken, flipped hidden side up, because they'll begin the game hidden, and then placed in that dwelling. And now that we're completely set up, we're ready to begin the game. Okay, so that was the setup. Not too bad. I got a couple quick things to point out too. Last week I had credited these redesigned monster chits we're using to John Pretzel, and apparently it was actually Dan Evans that created these, so I gave out the wrong credit. Sorry about that, Dan. Also, for these character examples that we're trying to do using Realmspeak, got quite a few people trying to do example videos, and that's great. So hopefully we'll be seeing those soon. If anybody's having any trouble with them, please email me. Hopefully I can help you out with it, and we'll get it working for you. That Cam Studio program can be a little tricky. If you are planning on doing one of those character example videos, and you have a certain character in mind that you're going to do, please email me and let me know, and then I'll put up a mark saying submission pending or something under that character, so anyone else that might be interested can see what people are already working on, and hopefully that way we won't get double submissions right at the beginning. It certainly wouldn't be a bad thing if we had more than one character example for each character, But right now, as we're just starting, it would probably be good to try and get them all up there. So we have one for each at first. And then even after we get them all done, who knows, maybe we can throw out some of those examples of using multiple characters together. I know I read on the Geek a while back, somebody was talking about how they came up with a really effective way to use the magician and wizard together. And that'd be interesting. I'd like to see that at least. So again, thanks for watching. Any questions, comments? Want to submit something? Please send us an email. Thanks for watching. See you next time.